The acrid smoke of burning plasma and the metallic tang of alien blood filled Captain Ethan Voss's nostrils as he sprinted through the crumbling corridors of the Celestian Royal Palace. His combat boots echoed against polished stone floors now, cracked and scarred by weapon fire. The peacekeeping mission had failed spectacularly 2 hours too late, just as Command had feared. "Captain, structural integrity is failing in the East Wing," crackled Sergeant Torres's voice through his comm unit. "We need to evacuate now." "Negative," Ethan replied, leaping over debris from a collapsed archway, sweeping the throne room. "First, if Queen Serafina is still alive." His words died as he burst through the ornate doors. Into the vast chamber, the scene before him was chaos incarnate. Royal guards lay motionless in pools of luminescent blue blood, their ceremonial armor no match for modern weaponry. Tapestries depicting centuries of Celestian history smoldered along the walls. At the center of it all, a figure moved weakly near the shattered crystal throne. Ethan's breath caught. Queen Serafina of the Celestian Empire was exactly as the intelligence briefings had described: tall, regal, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her most striking feature was her cascade of red curls, now matted with her own luminous blood. She wore flowing robes of deep purple, torn and stained, but her bearing remained unmistakably royal even as she struggled to remain upright. "Your Majesty," Ethan rushed forward, his weapon ready for any remaining threats. The Queen's large eyes, the color of distant nebulae, focused on him with effort. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but the life was rapidly fading from her features, human. She whispered, her accented voice barely audible. The peacekeepers? I'm Captain Ethan Voss, Your Majesty. We're here to help." He knelt beside her, his training kicking in as he assessed her wounds. The damage was extensive. Whoever had done this had been thorough. "Where are your daughters?" The intelligence report said. "Safe," she managed, a weak smile touching her lips. Hidden in the lower sanctum, her breathing grew more labored. "But not for long. The Valdorian fleet, they will return." Ethan activated his emergency beacon, calling for immediate medical evacuation. But even his untrained eye could see it was too late. The Queen's blood, that strange, beautiful luminescence unique to her species, was pooling beneath her. "Captain." She reached out with a trembling hand, her fingers surprisingly strong as they gripped his wrist. "I have little time. Listen carefully. Your Majesty, help is coming." "No." Her voice carried sudden authority despite its weakness. "Listen, my daughters, Avalon and Celeste, they are the future of our people. The succession laws, they cannot rule unmarried. The council, they will fragment. Civil war will follow." Ethan nodded, not understanding where this was leading, but recognizing the urgency in her fading voice. Queen Serafina struggled to rise, and Ethan instinctively supported her, letting her lean against his chest, her red curls brushed against his chin as she looked up at him with desperate intensity. You are strong, honorable. I can sense it." Her grip tightened. "By the ancient rights, by the power vested in me as sovereign of Celestia Prime. Your Majesty, you should save your strength, protect my daughters," she whispered, her voice carrying an odd resonance that seemed to echo in the chamber. "Make them yours, unite our peoples, save our kingdom." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to protest, to explain that he was just a soldier, not a diplomat or politician, but before he could speak, the Queen's body went limp in his arms. For a moment, silence filled the throne room except for the distant sound of approaching footsteps. Then voices speaking in the melodic Celestian language grew closer. What did she mean? Ethan murmured to the still form in his arms. But Queen Serafina's remarkable eyes had closed forever. The ornate doors burst open, and a group of Celestian nobles rushed in, their expressions shifting from hope to grief in an instant. The lead figure, an elderly male with intricate tattoos covering his blue skin, approached slowly. "Captain Voss," he said in accented standard, "I am Chancellor Valen. We heard the Queen's final words." His expression was grave. "Do you understand what has just occurred?" Ethan looked down at the Queen's peaceful face, then back at the assembled nobles, something in their expressions a mixture of sorrow and Expectation made his stomach clench. "I'm afraid I don't," he said quietly. Chancellor Valen bowed deeply. "By ancient right and royal decree, you have been named consort and protector of the crown princesses. The Queen's will is law. Captain, you are now bound to her daughters by blood and duty." The weight of those words settled over Ethan like a shroud as he held the dead queen in his arms, understanding that his life and the fate of an entire empire had just changed forever. 3 hours later, Ethan stood in the palace's secure lower sanctum, still wearing his battle-stained uniform. The underground chamber was a marvel of Celestian architecture, crystalline walls that pulsed with soft bioluminescent light, creating an ethereal atmosphere that felt both ancient and alive. Chancellor Valen had spent the journey explaining the intricacies of Celestian succession law, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Your Highnesses," Chancellor Valen announced, "formally I present Captain Ethan Voss, now bound by royal decree as your protector and consort." Two figures emerged from the shadows, and Ethan's breath caught. The twin princesses were unmistakably their mother's daughters, tall and regal with the same pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within, but where Queen Serafina had possessed gentle curves, her daughters were clearly warriors. Their bodies were lean and powerful, muscles defined beneath form-fitting training garments that left little to imagination. Princess Avalon stepped forward first. Her red hair was shorter than her mother's, cut in a practical style that framed her angular face. Her eyes, that same nebula blue, burned with barely contained fury. "This is the human?" Her voice carried the musical accent of her people, but there was steel beneath the melody. "This is the stranger our mother bound us to with her dying breath, Avalon," her sister warned softly. Princess Celeste was identical in height and build, but her hair fell in longer waves down her back, where Avalon radiated controlled anger. Celeste seemed more calculating, studying Ethan with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "Mother chose him for a reason. Mother was dying," Avalon snapped, her fists clenching. She wasn't thinking clearly. "We don't need a human to protect us. We've been training since childhood. We can handle our own enemies." Ethan found his voice. "Your Highnesses, I didn't ask for this. I came here as part of a peacekeeping mission. I was trying to save your mother." "Not," he gestured helplessly. "I don't even understand what I'm supposed to do now." Celeste circled him slowly, like a predator evaluating prey. "You don't understand Celestian law, do you, Captain? When our mother named you consort, she didn't just make you our protector. In the eyes of our people, you became our mate, our husband." The word hit him like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what? The succession requires it," Chancellor Valen explained patiently. "The crown princesses cannot rule unmarried. It's been law for over 1,000 years. Without a consort, the noble houses will tear the empire apart fighting for control." Avalon moved closer, her presence intimidating despite the fact that Ethan had several inches on her. "Let me make this clear, human. Just because ancient law binds us doesn't mean we accept you. You'll have to prove yourself worthy of standing beside the future queens of Celestia." "And how exactly am I supposed to do that?" Ethan asked, meeting her challenging gaze. "Combat trials," Celeste said simply. "Political acumen, strategic thinking," and she exchanged a meaningful look with her sister. "Personal compatibility." The way she said those last words made heat rise in Ethan's cheeks, but he kept his expression neutral. "I see, and if I fail these tests, then you die," Avalon said bluntly, "and we find another way to save our kingdom." A moment of tense silence filled the chamber. Then Chancellor Valen cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should discuss the immediate threats facing the Empire. The Valdorian fleet will return within days, and our own military is scattered. We need unity now more than ever." Celeste nodded, her demeanor shifting to something more professional. "The Valdorians have been trying to conquer our outer colonies for years. Mother's death will be seen as an opportunity for a full invasion. They're not our only problem." Avalon added grimly, "3 of the major noble houses have been conspiring to overthrow the crown. Lord Thane in particular has been gathering support among the military commanders." Ethan processed this information, his tactical mind automatically sorting through the implications. "How many loyal forces do you have?" "Perhaps 1/3 of the royal fleet," Celeste replied. The palace guard is loyal, but they're ceremonial. Troops, not front-line fighters. And you too, what's your military experience? Both princesses straightened at the question. We've been training since we could walk, Avalon said proudly. Combat, strategy, leadership. We're not helpless royals sitting in ivory towers. Prove it, Ethan said quietly. The challenge hung in the air. Then Celeste smiled, the first genuine expression he'd seen from either of them. Very well, Captain. Combat trials begin at dawn. But understand this, will be testing you as much as you're testing us. Later that evening, Ethan found himself alone in chambers that were far too luxurious for a soldier. The room was clearly designed for royalty, with walls that sparkled like captured starlight and furniture that seemed to be grown rather than built. He was studying tactical reports when a soft chime announced a visitor. Princess Celeste entered, having changed from her training garments into a flowing gown that complemented her pale blue skin beautifully. In her hands, she carried a tray with what appeared to be food and drink. I thought you might be hungry, she said, setting the tray on a nearby table. Celestian cuisine is different from human food. Thank you. He gestured to a chair across from him. Would you like to sit? I have questions about tomorrow's trials. She settled gracefully into the chair, her movements liquid and controlled. What would you like to know, honestly? I'd like to know if your sister actually intends to kill me, or if she's just testing my resolve. Celeste laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. Both. Probably. Avalon has always been intense. She loved our mother deeply, and she's angry about losing her. You represent change, uncertainty. She doesn't handle those well, and you, I'm more pragmatic. She said, meeting his eyes. I can see what you did for our mother in her final moments. You showed her comfort and dignity when she was dying alone. That means something. Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. Then Celeste stood. Get some rest, Captain. Tomorrow will determine whether you're truly meant to stand beside us, in battle and in life. As she reached the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I hope you are. Our kingdom needs hope, and perhaps we do too. After she left, Ethan stared at the door for a long time, wondering what he'd gotten himself into, and why the thought of earning these remarkable women's trust had become so suddenly important to him. Dawn came early in the palace training grounds, the twin suns of Celestia Prime casting long shadows across the crystalline combat arena. Ethan arrived to find both princesses already warming up, their movements a deadly dance of precision and power. They wore form-fitting combat suits that accentuated every curve and muscle, and watching them spar together was like observing poetry in motion. Ready to begin, human? Avalon called out, not bothering to hide her skepticism. She wielded twin energy blades that hummed with contained power, their blue glow matching her skin tone. As ready as I'll ever be, Ethan replied. Accepting the traditional Celestian weapon, Chancellor Valen offered him a staff that could shift between solid and energy states. He'd studied the tactical manuals all night, but theory was vastly different from practice. The first few minutes were humbling. Avalon came at him like a force of nature, her attacks relentless and precisely calculated. Ethan found himself purely on the defensive, using his superior reach and human reflexes to barely stay ahead of her blades. The princess was skilled beyond anything he'd encountered, her movements flowing from one form to another with deadly grace. Is this the best humanity has to offer? She taunted, pressing her advantage. No wonder the galaxy sees your species as upstart primitives. Her words sparked something in Ethan's chest, not anger, but determination. He'd faced impossible odds before. Shifting his grip on the staff, he began to incorporate human combat techniques, moves that were foreign to Celestian martial traditions. His fighting style became unpredictable, mixing disciplined military training with street fighting pragmatism. The tide began to turn. Where Avalon was elegant and formal, Ethan was adaptive and brutal when necessary. He caught her off guard with a feint that led into a tackle, a move completely outside Celestian combat doctrine. They went down together, rolling across the arena floor until he managed to pin her, his staff at her throat. Yield, he said quietly, both of them breathing hard. For a moment, Their faces were inches apart. He could see golden flecks in her nebula blue eyes, could feel the heat radiating from her skin. Something shifted in her expression: surprise, respect, and something else that made his pulse quicken. "I yield," she whispered. And there was no shame in it, only acknowledgement of skill fairly demonstrated. Celeste approached as they separated, her expression unreadable. "Interesting technique, Captain. Unconventional, but effective. Your turn," he asked, still catching his breath. "No," she said with a slight smile. "You've proven yourself in combat. My test is different." The next phase took place in the war room, where holographic displays showed the current military situation in devastating detail. Red markers indicated Valdorian fleet positions, while amber dots showed the locations of potentially traitorous noble houses. "Tell me," Celeste said, her voice taking on the formal tone of a future queen. "How would you counter this threat?" Ethan studied the displays, his strategic mind processing the information. "The Valdorians expect you to consolidate your forces defensively. Instead, I'd split the loyal fleet into 3 groups, hit their supply lines here and here." He pointed to specific coordinates, "while making it appear you're massing for a defense of the capital." "That's actually brilliant," Avalon admitted reluctantly. "Force them to spread their forces to protect their logistics." "What about the noble houses?" Celeste pressed. "Political problem requires a political solution," Ethan replied. "You need to make supporting you more attractive than opposing you. Offer them something they want more than independence." "Such as?" Ethan looked between the 2 princesses, an idea forming. "A royal wedding. Make it a celebration that unites the entire kingdom. Invite every noble house to witness the dawn of a new era. Those who attend show loyalty and get rewarded. Those who don't mark themselves as traitors," Celeste finished, her eyes lighting up with understanding. "And a royal wedding would legitimize your position beyond question." "Our position," Ethan corrected automatically, then paused as he realized what he'd said. The words had come naturally, as if he was already thinking of himself as part of their partnership. The princesses exchanged a meaningful look. Some silent communication passed between them that Ethan couldn't decipher. That evening, as the 3 of them shared a private dinner, the atmosphere had shifted considerably. The formal distance of the morning had given way to something more intimate, more real. "You surprised me today," Avalon admitted over the Celestian wine, a beverage that glowed faintly and tasted like liquid starlight. "When I saw you with Mother, I thought you were just another human soldier. But you fought with honor, and your strategies are sound," Celeste finished. "You think like a ruler, not just a warrior." Ethan felt heat rise in his cheeks under their combined attention. "I'm just trying to help. Your mother asked me to protect you, and I take that seriously." "Is that all?" Celeste asked softly, leaning closer across the table. "Just duty." The question hung in the air between them. Ethan found himself studying both women, Avalon's fierce beauty, Celeste's thoughtful intelligence, the way they complemented each other perfectly. When had his feelings shifted from obligation to something deeper? "No," he admitted quietly, "it's not just duty anymore." Avalon's hand found his across the table, her blue skin warm against his. "We've never shared a mate before," she said, her voice husky. "In our culture, it's not uncommon, but it requires trust, intimacy of more than just the body. We need to know you," Celeste added, her own hand covering their joined ones. "Really know you, your fears, your dreams, what drives you." The touch of their skin against his was electric, sending warmth shooting up his arms. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," they said together, their voices harmonizing in a way that made his breath catch. The conversation that followed was unlike anything Ethan had experienced. They talked until the moons rose high outside the windows, sharing stories of their childhoods, their fears about the future, their hopes for their people. The princesses spoke of the loneliness of royal life, the weight of expectation, the way they'd always had each other, but never anyone else who truly understood. As the night grew late, Celeste rose from her chair and moved to stand behind Ethan, her hands resting gently on his shoulders. "You carry so much responsibility," she murmured, her fingers working at the tension in his muscles. "Always protecting others, never asking for protection yourself." Avalon shifted closer on his other side, her thigh pressing against his. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore," she whispered. "We're stronger together." The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and growing desire. When Ethan looked up at Celeste, she was gazing down at him with an expression of tender longing that made his heart race. Avalon's hand slipped to rest on his chest, over his rapidly beating heart. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Once we cross this line, we're already bound by law," Avalon reminded him. "But we want to be bound by choice, by love." Celeste leaned down and pressed her lips to his forehead, a gesture so gentle and intimate that it nearly undid him. "The question is," she whispered against his skin, "do you want us, not because duty demands it, but because your heart does?" His answer was to reach up and cup her face, drawing her down for a kiss that tasted of starlight and promise. Avalon's soft gasp of pleasure at the sight sent fire through his veins, and when she leaned in to kiss his neck, he knew there was no going back. They had found each other in duty, but what grew between them in that moment was pure, undeniable love. 2 weeks had passed since that first night of tender intimacy, and the bond between Ethan and the princesses had deepened beyond anything he could have imagined. Their relationship had evolved into something beautiful and complex. 3 hearts, learning to beat as one, 3 minds working in perfect harmony toward a common goal. Ethan woke before dawn, as had become his habit, to find himself nestled between the 2 women who had become his world. Avalon slept curled against his left side, her red hair spilled across his chest like liquid fire, while Celeste pressed close to his right, her arm draped possessively across his waist. The sight of them in the soft morning light, their pale blue skin luminous against the white silk sheets, never failed to take his breath away. "You're staring again," Celeste murmured without opening her eyes, a smile playing at her lips. "Can you blame me?" he whispered back, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I still can't believe this is real." Avalon stirred at the sound of their voices, stretching like a cat as she woke. "Good morning," she purred, trailing her fingers along his chest in a way that made his pulse quicken. "Sleep well, better than I have in years," he admitted, marveling at how natural this felt. The 3 of them fit together perfectly, not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually. What had begun as political necessity had blossomed into genuine love, deep and unshakable. Their morning routine had become a cherished ritual. They shared breakfast on the private balcony of their quarters, discussing the day's agenda while trading gentle touches and stolen kisses. Today's schedule was particularly important. The noble houses were arriving for what they believed was a simple court assembly, unaware that they were walking into Ethan's carefully laid political trap. Lord Thane's ships entered orbit an hour ago, Celeste reported, reviewing the intelligence briefings. "He brought a full escort, clearly expecting trouble." "Good," Avalon said, her warrior's instinct sharpening. "Let him show his hand. The more openly he opposes us, the easier it will be to justify his removal." Ethan studied the tactical displays they'd laid out on the table. "Remember, we want to give the moderate houses a chance to choose the right side. Thane and his core supporters are lost causes, but Lord Kane and Duchess Mira can still be swayed." "You think like a politician now," Celeste observed with fond amusement. "When did our soldier become so devious?" "I learned from the best," he replied, catching her hand and bringing it to his lips. The simple gesture made her eyes darken with desire, but duty called. The great throne room had been transformed for the occasion. Where once it had been a place of formal court functions, it now served as the stage for a carefully orchestrated piece of political theater. Representatives from all 12 major noble houses filled the space, their conversations creating a low buzz of anticipation. Ethan stood at the base of the crystal throne, resplendent in formal Celestian court attire that had been tailored to fit his human frame. The deep blue fabric was shot through with silver threads that caught the light, making him appear every inch the royal consort he had become. To his left stood Avalon, magnificent in flowing robes of royal purple, while Celeste commanded attention on his right in complimentary crimson silk. "Citizens of Celestia," Chancellor Valen announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "Their Royal Highnesses, Princess Avalon and Princess Celeste, along with their chosen consort, Captain Ethan Voss. The formal introductions completed, Celeste stepped forward to address the assembly. Her voice carried the authority of born royalty as she spoke of unity, of the strength that came from standing together against external threats. The Valdorian Empire seeks to exploit what they perceive as weakness in our time of transition. She declared, "They are wrong. We have never been stronger." Pretty words, Lord Thane interrupted, rising from his seat among the nobles. He was an imposing figure, tall even by Celestian standards, with elaborately braided hair and ceremonial armor that gleamed with precious metals. "But what strength can you claim with this human as your consort? What does he know of our ways, our traditions?" The challenge was exactly what Ethan had been expecting. He stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying clearly through the chamber. "I know that Queen Seraphina chose me with her dying breath," he said simply. "I know that I have sworn my life to protect this realm and its people. And I know that, while you've been playing politics, Valdorian ships have been massing at our borders." He gestured, and holographic displays materialized above the assembled nobles, showing current fleet positions and tactical assessments. They plan to strike within the week. The question is whether we'll face them united, or whether we'll hand them victory through our own division. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the nobles studied the intelligence data. Lord Kane, a moderate voice among the houses, leaned forward with interest. "These projections, they're remarkably detailed. How did you acquire this information?" Ethan smiled grimly. "Human intelligence networks have their advantages. We've been tracking Valdorian movements for months. I'm prepared to share everything with the loyal houses." The word loyal hung in the air like a challenge. Several nobles shifted uncomfortably, while others sat straighter with renewed confidence. "This changes nothing," Lord Thane declared, but Ethan could hear uncertainty creeping into his voice. "A foreigner's intelligence means nothing without the strength to act on it." "Then perhaps a demonstration is in order," Avalon said, her warriors smile sharp as a blade. "Captain, would you care to show Lord Thane how foreigners fight?" The formal challenge was issued according to ancient protocol, and Thane couldn't refuse without losing face entirely. The combat was brief but decisive. Ethan's human techniques, refined through weeks of training with the princesses, proved more than adequate against Thane's traditional Celestian style. As Thane yielded, breathing hard and looking stunned, the political landscape of the room shifted visibly. Several nobles who had been sitting on the neutral fence moved closer to the royal section, while Thane's supporters seemed to shrink into themselves. "The strength of our union cannot be questioned," Celeste announced as Ethan helped the defeated lord to his feet with respectful courtesy. "But let us speak now of celebration rather than conflict. It is time to formally announce what many of you have already surmised." She reached for Ethan's hand, while Avalon took his other arm. 3 days hence, we will be wed according to the ancient rites. All loyal houses are invited to witness the dawn of a new age for Celestia." The announcement sent excited whispers through the crowd. A royal wedding was more than just ceremony, it was a political event that would reshape the power structure of the entire empire. As the formal assembly concluded and the nobles dispersed to their quarters, Ethan found himself alone with his beloveds in the private chambers that had become their sanctuary. "That went better than expected," he said, pulling both women into his arms. "Thane's support is cracking, and the moderates are coming over to our side. You were magnificent." Avalon murmured against his neck, her lips warm on his skin. "The way you handled the challenge, the political maneuvering, you've truly become one of us." Celeste's hands were already working at the fastenings of his formal robes. "I think such a performance deserves a reward," she said with a sultry smile that made his blood heat. "The wedding is in 3 days," Avalon added, her voice husky with desire. "But tonight is ours." As they drew him toward the bed they shared, Ethan marveled at how completely his life had changed. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple soldier following orders. Now he was a consort, a strategist, and most importantly, a man deeply in love with 2 extraordinary women who loved him in return. The challenges ahead were daunting: a war to fight, a kingdom to save, political enemies to defeat. But as Avalon's lips found his and Celeste's hands roamed his body with growing urgency, Ethan knew they could face anything together. Their love had become their strength, and their strength would save them all. The wedding day dawned with both sons of Celestia Prime rising in perfect alignment, an omen of great fortune according to ancient tradition. Ethan stood before the mirror in his ceremonial chambers, adjusting the ornate collar of his wedding robes for the 10th time. The garment was a masterwork of Celestian craftsmanship, woven from threads that shifted color with the light, symbolizing the union of different worlds. Nervous, Chancellor Valen asked, entering with the final ceremonial items: a crown of crystallized starlight that would mark Ethan's official elevation to royal consort. Terrified, Ethan admitted with a rueful smile, "Not of marrying them, that's the easy part, but of everything that comes after. The responsibility, the expectations, the war." Valen added quietly. Ethan nodded grimly. The Valdorian fleet had been spotted at the system's edge 2 days ago, exactly as his intelligence had predicted. After the wedding ceremony, there would be precious little time for celebration before battle commenced. "The princesses chose well," Valen said, placing the crown reverently on a nearby table. "You've proven yourself a worthy consort, Captain, more than worthy." The ceremony took place in the great cathedral, a soaring structure of living crystal that had grown from the planet's core over thousands of years. Representatives from every loyal house filled the massive space, their formal robes creating a sea of color. Beneath the crystalline arches that captured and refracted the light of both suns died as Ethan walked down the central aisle. He felt the weight of history upon his shoulders. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a statement of unity, a defiant declaration that the Celestian Empire would stand strong against any threat. But when he saw Avalon and Celeste waiting for him at the altar, everything else faded away. They were breathtaking. Avalon wore traditional warrior queen attire, form-fitting armor crafted from precious metals and embedded with gems that caught the light like captured stars. Her red hair was braided with golden threads, and ceremonial weapons hung at her sides. She looked every inch the fierce protector she was born to be. Celeste had chosen the robes of a scholar queen, flowing garments of deep blue silk that seemed to move with a life of their own. Her longer hair was crowned with a circlet of silver and sapphires, and she carried the ancient staff of knowledge that had been passed down through generations of Celestian rulers. Together, they represented the perfect balance of strength and wisdom that their people needed. The ceremony itself was conducted in the ancient language, with Chancellor Valen serving as the officiant. When it came time for the vows, each of them spoke from the heart rather than reciting traditional words. "Ethan," Avalon said, her voice carrying clearly through the cathedral, "you came to us as a stranger, bound by duty and honor. You've become our partner in all things, our protector, our advisor, our beloved. I pledge to stand beside you in battle, to trust you with my life and my heart, and to build with you a future worthy of our people's dreams." Celeste's words were equally moving. "In you, we found not just a consort, but an equal, someone who sees us not as prizes to be won, but as women to be loved and respected. I promise to share with you not just power, but purpose. Together, we will forge a new age of peace and prosperity." When it was his turn, Ethan looked into their eyes and spoke the words that had been building in his heart for weeks. "Avalon, Celeste, you've shown me that love isn't about completing someone else. It's about becoming more than you ever thought possible. You've made me a better man, a better leader, a better protector. I vow to stand with you through whatever challenges await, to love you with everything I have, and to prove every day that your mother's faith in me was justified." The exchange of rings, delicate bands of crystallized light that would glow as long as their love remained true, sealed their union. When they kissed, first Ethan and Avalon, then Ethan and Celeste, then all three together in an embrace that symbolized their unique bond, the cathedral erupted in joyous celebration. The feast that followed was magnificent, but brief. Even as the nobles toasted the new royal family, urgent reports were arriving from the defense perimeter. The Valdorian fleet had begun its final approach. "How long do we have?" Ethan asked Admiral Corvus, the commander of the loyal fleet, as they huddled over tactical displays in the palace war room. 6 hours, maybe 8, the grizzled officer replied. They're moving in a tight formation, clearly expecting heavy resistance. They'll get it, Avalon declared, having changed from her wedding robes into practical battle armor. What's our strength? 47 ships of the line, plus supporting vessels, Corvus reported. The Valdorians have nearly twice that number. But your intelligence about their supply lines was accurate. Half their ships are running on minimal fuel reserves. Ethan studied the holographic display, his mind racing through possibilities. We can't win a straight fight, but we don't need to. We just need to convince them that conquering Celestia will cost more than it's worth. The bait and strike formation, Celeste suggested, recognizing his thinking. Exactly. Admiral, I need you to split the fleet into 3 groups. The first group will engage their main force here. He pointed to a position near the outer planets. Make it look like you're throwing everything into a desperate defense, while groups 2 and 3 hit their supply convoy here and here. Avalon continued, seeing the strategy unfold. Cut off their fuel, and they'll have to withdraw or risk being stranded. It's risky, Corvus admitted. If the timing is off, Group 1 could be destroyed before the others can complete their missions. Then we'll have to make sure the timing is perfect, Ethan said firmly. Can you do it, Admiral? The old warrior grinned fiercely. For the queens and their consort, I'd fly into a black hole if you asked. The battle that followed was unlike anything in Celestian military history. The 3-pronged attack caught the Valdorians completely off guard, their commanders struggling to respond to threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Ethan commanded the overall strategy from the palace, coordinating with his wives, who had taken personal command of 2 of the strike groups, watching Avalon lead her squadron in a daring assault on the enemy supply depot. Seeing Celeste outmaneuver a force twice her size through pure tactical brilliance filled him with pride that was almost overwhelming. Enemy fleet is breaking off, Admiral Corvus reported after 6 hours of intense fighting. They're withdrawing to regroup, but without fuel for their ships, they'll have to retreat all the way back to Valdorian space. The victory celebration that night was even more joyous than the wedding had been. The noble houses that had initially been skeptical of the human consort now looked at him with genuine respect and admiration. His strategic genius had saved their world, and his obvious love for their queens had won their hearts. As the 3 of them finally retired to their chambers in the early hours of the morning, still in their battle-stained uniforms, Ethan reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them together. Do you think your mother would be proud? He asked softly as they held each other close. She knew. Celeste murmured against his chest. Somehow, she knew you were exactly what we needed. What we all needed, Avalon corrected, her voice drowsy with exhaustion and contentment. A protector, a partner, a bridge between worlds. Outside their windows, the lights of the capital city sparkled like earthbound stars, a testament to the peace they had secured. The Valdorian threat was ended, the rebellious nobles had been brought to heel, and the empire was stronger than it had been in generations. But more than that, 3 hearts that had found each other across the vast gulf of space had created something beautiful and lasting. Their love had become legend, a story that would be told for generations to come. Ethan Voss had come to Celestia as a simple soldier. He would leave his mark on history as a king, a strategist, and most importantly, as a man who had learned that the greatest victories were won not through strength of arms, but through the courage to love completely and without reservation. As he drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the warmth of his wives and the glow of their shared future, Ethan smiled. Queen Seraphina's final command had been fulfilled beyond even her wildest dreams. He had protected her daughters, made them his own, and in doing so, had found his own destiny among the stars. The end.